time for another Two Women Talking, specifically another Two Women Talking with a man. We are talking about Prince Charming, and we thought we'd invite back the most charming guy we know. The fantastic, wonderful Bobby Calloway is back to talk about possibly the lone trope in fairy tales where the man is a reward for a woman. Bobby, how does it feel?
Sorry, yes, I'm just
No
blown over
pressure.
by.
Basking in it. Bobby is playing the proper Prince Charming. He comes in a little bit late and says little right at the end of a long monologue from a woman. And this is where I want to start, because I researched these things, and so I went to Wikipedia, and I was taken aback by the official crowdsourced definition of Prince Charming, because we're all fans of Disney movies. So Disney does not fit the Prince Charming definition. Prince Charming is a fairy tale stock character who comes to the rescue of a damsel in distress and must engage in a quest to liberate her from an evil spell. The classification suits most heroes of a number of traditional folktales, including Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella. And Cinderella doesn't actually fit that definition. She chooses to go to the ball. All he does is show up with a shoe. How the hell does that save her, Song?
Oh my God. It's like when we were talking about it before and you were mentioning the definition, I was like, but that doesn't fit Cinderella. You didn't even mention that they name drop it there.
I didn't see it until I kept reading.
And it's like, I have read the original Cinderella fairy tale, and that does not fit.
Yeah.
The most he does is he lays pitch down on the stairs, so she gets stuck there. But that's how she, in the original version, that's how she loses the shoe.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
the character that shows benevolence to Snow White is the huntsman, not a prince. Yeah, it's just wrong. And the truth is, we all agreed about this before, so I'm not putting Bobby on the spot here, that the Prince Charming in fairy tales is rich man as reward. It tends to be a character in the story that focuses on an ambitious woman, which was incredibly subversive at the time these stories were created. And some of them were cautionary tales. The Little Mermaid doesn't end happy in the original Hans Christian Andersen version. A lot of these stories are combination aspirational stories for girls, which is why I think they've lasted, thanks largely in part to Walt Disney's reimagining of them. But they're also cautionary tales telling girls, if you want to rise above your status, you're gonna have a rough time. And Song, I'm sure you have thoughts about that.
Yeah. And I just want to say The Little Mermaid not ending well is very typical of Hans Christian Andersen stories.
Yeah.
I don't read a lot of Hans Christian Andersen because the man was miserable. There's been a lot of debate on whether A Little Mermaid was about a ballerina he knew who had to give up ballet when she got married, or whether it was written for a man he was in love with who went off and got married, and Andersen was judging him for closeting himself by getting married, which, I mean,
why not both?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Protect yourself socially.
Yeah. But it is funny how when traditional analysis or contemporary analysis, probably more accurately, analyzes fairy tales, they leave out, compared to other stories of time, they were very female centric, but also, the Prince Charming is this big cipher that he doesn't tend to do much. He doesn't tend to say much. He tends to look kind of dark hair, sometimes blue-eyed, white prince. And that, let's face it, that's more a status symbol than an individualized character who's right for the female heroine.
Okay, the exception. Bobby, have you seen 2015 Cinderella?
Yes.
Okay, that's a Kenneth Branagh reimagining, though.
I went to see it twice, actually.
Well, yes, but Richard Madden as Kit
That's his
is
best performance.
absolutely. I've joked that it's like Richard Madden was in Game of Thrones, where it was like, okay, I'm going to marry the person I want in defiance of what people tell me. Whoops, everyone's dead. I'm going to go over to the Disney version where I can marry who I want and everyone lives happily ever after.
And I saw that first.
Oh, because then the Eternals was just talk about a love story that it wasn't. I don't know what that was.
But yeah, so Richard Madden is Kit, as Prince Kit. Sorry, I almost said Kit Harington. But
they're both that Prince Charming physical type. They're perfect that way.
And they look very similar, which was why they were both cast as
Snows
brothers. Yeah.
Yes. So, but it's so well done. It's so well written, and they do a great job of doing the gentleman prince. Like, there's nothing of the barbarian in him. There is nothing, which is a bit ironic coming from me, but he's very genteel. He's well spoken. He's extremely persuasive. Sorry if my words aren't very clear. I have a cough drop in my mouth. I just realized that might be causing problems. But he's extremely persuasive. There's points where we see him just be like, yeah, no, that you're saying that, but that's not true. And people are forced to admit, yeah, no, I'm not telling the truth. But we also see him cry at one point. And I remember being so moved when I saw that in the theater. And I still am every time I watch the movie. And it's so well done because he has personality. And they do the thing where Cinderella and the prince do meet before the ball. So they have that connection. And it's just, it's magical. That whole movie is just so magical.
Well,
yeah, I mean, my favorite bit. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I think my favorite bit is I think this was planned for the animated version, but they couldn't fit it in. Kind of after she, is revealed to be the girl from the ball, they meet beforehand. Like, he sees her in the servant clothes, and she just kind of has this really beautiful speech of, I have no title, no anything. I'm just a simple country girl who loves you. Will you take me as I am? And he just says, of course. And it is just...
If you will take me as I am, a monarch still learning his trade, which is a tie back to when they first met. And he said he was an apprentice at the castle. And
so he lied down to, I mean, Kenneth Branagh's just... It's so funny because he's so wonderful at capturing women on film. He's so terrible to them in real life because he did a spectacularly good job with the first Thor movie, actually making the utterly ridiculous relationship between Jane Foster and a completely reimagined Marvel Thor. I mean, he took the Thor in Marvel Comics as Norse gods doing Shakespeare with the these and thous, and just leaned whole hog into it and turned Thor into this barbarian prince that needed to humble. And for some odd reason, every director since has forgotten what that was about before Taika Waititi made a great 40 minutes in the middle of a movie that was legitimately all over the place.
And actually, Patty Jenkins was supposed to direct The Dark World, and she was going to continue the Shakespeare theme where she said like Thor and Jane were going to be basically like Romeo and Juliet. And then when she left, that kind of just got scrapped. And that's why Natalie Portman wanted to leave as well.
And I wish you hadn't told me that.
That would have been a great movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I own up to the fact that Romeo and Juliet is my trash. When it's done well, it is excellent. And my definitive version is the 1968 film, which is the anti-Greta Gerwig's Little Women, because the costumes are all accurate.
Greta Gerwig is doing Chronicles of Narnia.
I saw that. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I'm not sure how to feel about it.
You notice how you're both very trepidatious of don't want to crap on it, but flashing yellow.
I know. I'm earlier. I was actually picturing as like, oh, I wonder what the Cats movie would have been like if she'd done it.
Interesting.
I don't know how it could have been worse.
I don't think it could.
Whoa. But yeah, so I guess we didn't get completely off topic, but getting back to the Prince charming. And I do think,
Yes.
Song, you brought up a good point about the genteel quality of Prince Charming. And I thought that Once Upon a Time really stuck a pin in that with what was his name? Josh Dallas?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the name.
Who
Because
was also
they
in the first Thor movie.
yes,
Yes, he was.
Yeah. But they had to separate all the princes. And
Mhm.
so they made Prince Charming kind of an adjective and a verb, that he
Mhm.
wasn't smart, he wasn't terribly brave, he wasn't super physical. He's really charming. He's really likable. He's nice. And I do think that that's different from the barbarian prince, the
Mhm.
handsome, heroic, like prince, knight gallant. I do think it is a very, very specific trope that speaks to something very specific in women. Let's face it, it's the acceptable trope when you like the nice guy. And that doesn't get enough play, I don't think. I think it's a really misunderstood trope in that, yeah, they do focus on money. And let's face it, back then when women couldn't own property, that mattered. But
Mhm.
money's easy to come by. They do a great job in showing kind of the lack of choice facing women back then in the Netflix show Blue Eye Samurai, where Kenneth Branagh plays the villain and he freaking nails it. Like, I did not expect to see him in an anime style Netflix show, but he's got menace, he's sleazy, but they actually push a female character into marriage in that show because they determine, and women are involved in this choice, that she'll be better off, that it's safer, she'll have a better life. And the idea that because she's beautiful and because she's a princess, she has options that other women don't. And the interesting thing about the Prince Charming, it does tend to be the reward for the common girl
Mhm.
at the
Yes, because
center. Yeah.
the three classic Disney princesses, Snow White, Aurora, and Cinderella.
Cinderella.
Yeah.
All of the, well, even though Snow White and Aurora were princesses by birth, they grew up in poverty as well.
They were raised
Mhm.
common.
And
Yeah.
Cinderella she was, I think, noble, or she had some kind of status, but then
She's a merchant's daughter.
yeah. And so it's like they all had to work hard, and basically the prince was kind of that was sort of the lesson they preached to the women of the early 20th century, where it was like, you can work, once you do all this work, you'll get the man will come along, and that's your reward, and you don't have to work anymore. Well, I mean,
Well,
in the family you will work, yeah.
it's interesting because a lot of the fairy tales, it's not about if you work hard you will get the prince. It's if you are unbelievably good and if
Yeah.
you're nice to the ugly old woman at the well,
Mhm.
and random people, and you help animals, which is where the Disney animal
Yeah.
thing comes in, but it is a part of classic fairy tales.
Yeah.
If you do this, then you will be rewarded. And I feel like maybe the prince is a bit of a symbol, because Liana, you talk about the divine right of kings.
Yeah.
So in a lot of folk stories, there is this almost divine element to the nobility and royalty, where it's not just, oh, the prince will choose you, it's the prince who is chosen by God.
Mhm.
In a way.
Well,
And even at the end of the original Snow White, you can kind of see the castle in the distance, framed sort of very kind of in the clouds, looking very ethereal.
very
Which of course got
Camelot-y,
plenty of people analyzing. Oh no, she really died, and he's bringing her to heaven.
That's interesting. I mean, I also take from it, because she's marrying the prince, she's going to raise the next generation of rulers. You
I think
want someone that has a kind heart. You want someone who's going to be benevolent. I mean, when you think about the times that these stories came out of, it also gives us things like Robin Hood, where obviously they were ruled by tyrants, and
there is also an idealization of
yeah.
the Prince Charming is good because it's an ideal of they dream of the good prince, because at that in a lot of cases the prince was the potential ruler.
Yeah.
So whatever issues the king had, there was a chance that the prince would do something different than what his father did. So it is that potential.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that's the core of. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Bobby.
That's the core of the basic Arthurian mythology, isn't it? Uther is a tyrant, and then Arthur is the good king the prince who will become king and be the once and future king.
Oh yeah, man, the Arthurian myth went through a lot of twists and turns, didn't it? I mean,
oh yeah.
Yeah, because the once and future king is a separate trope all in itself. And I mean that Arthur's life is not happy. And I mean,
I forget which, depending on which version, like he has to basically conceive a child with one of his half sisters, depends on which one.
Yeah. And but also, I mean, that's a story that started ostensibly in, well, not the England of today, but got into the French chucked it back, and then we got Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But
Arthur is also a male Cinderella when you think about it.
Yes, because he's raised in secret. Yeah.
He's raised in secret, and in some versions he is like he's the Squire Ward, so he's doing grunt work.
It's really interesting though to watch Arthur drift from this peasant king who rises up and frees the Britons to a Christ figure that, the church got a hold of the story, went, oh, this is our way to show Jesus didn't have to come, like did come from the line of David, but didn't. You don't have to prove nobility to prove divinity. And the way that story and so many others get retold and retold and retold, that is a point of fascination to me. Because it almost becomes collective storytelling at that point, right? Because when people freak out with comic book stuff, you changed it. A lot of comic books are using these old fairy tale tropes, but making them for boys instead of girls. Let's face it.
And even comic books have been called the American mythology.
Yeah.
And mythology is something that does evolve. And, we see it in the ways Cinderella is repeatedly retold and retold, and the way they try to modernize it. And I'm very grateful that in the last few years, I've seen more people going, wait, she's an abuse victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a key part that a lot of people overlook in the story, especially the extreme feminist think pieces who are so anti-Cinderella, and just the idea that she was just sitting around and she just wanted to marry a prince. Well, it's like, one, yeah, because that was the best thing you could do back then as a woman, but two, it glosses over so much of the actual story and the context of it. And it's frustrating to see, like, a few years ago, Amazon did their Cinderella remake, which the costumes alone are clearly ripping off the 2015 version, but there's this whole subplot of she wants to be a clothes designer, but women aren't allowed to own businesses, which is not historically accurate, especially there is no time frame for that movie because it's all anachronistic garbage, which some movies can do anachronistic really well and make it fun. This movie did not.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not going to marry you, Prince, because I want to follow my dream. Never mind that if you were the princess and thus the queen, you can persuade the king or eventually your husband to change the law, and you would be the predominant leader of fashion trends as the wife of the future king, and you could bring in people to either make your designs or teach you how to create, and you would be ideally positioned to follow your dreams if you actually married the prince. But oh no, we're trying to make a feminist message, so no.
But do you
We
notice
don't
the low opinion of men inherent in that message? You have to choose a partner or every other goal you have in life. You can't have both.
That's so sad.
Well, it misses the point of the Prince Charming, right?
Mhm.
Because getting a prince, there's other stories where the prince or the pirate king or the king is cruel
Mhm.
and is subjugating, does treat women poorly. The entire point of the Prince Charming, why that's awesome instead of depressing, is the assumption is he is going to treat her well and he is not going to crush her spirit.
Mhm.
And that, that's why the Prince Charming is always at the end of the Disney princess movie with a very spirited, weird, not obedient female lead.
Mhm.
He's going to appreciate that in her, not snuff it out. And I'm not sure why that gets dismissed, because I think it would be better to show stories about how you can have that partnership, how you can make it work, know the red flags and one that it's not going to, how to look for a man that is going to support you, is going to let you be the star in the family. And I do think we need more positive male role models that way, because it's tough for guys. Bobby, I don't mean to speak for you. I'll give you the floor here, but I see it, with guys, there is this thing. If you're not the rock star of the family, it takes a lot of strength to go, no, we care more about Ariel than Prince Eric. Right. So Bobby,
Who is
I'll give it
technically a king, by the way.
Yes, that's true.
Because it's stated pretty clearly, well, he hasn't been coronated, but it's stated pretty clearly his father is dead.
Yeah, he's a regent. So Bobby, I'll let you speak to that, the sort of mixed messages that are sent to men in this regard and how the Prince Charming fits.
Yeah, because I remember that this is probably the late 2000s before Disney acquired Marvel and Star Wars, and there was a bit of a thing online I remember reading. It's been so long, so I can't remember too specifics, but it was the Disneyland parks had a very kind of specific attraction where little girls could go and get made over like a princess,
Mhm.
and that
The Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique.
That's what
Yeah.
it's called.
I wish I'd been able to go when I was young enough to do it, but at the same time, the dresses now are not a lot better than they were when I was a kid.
Mhm. Yeah, and so there was complaints that there was nothing for boys who might want to dress up as the princes or anything. And I think there is a pirate attraction as well.
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
that's unisex as well. So it's like there was like a little boy who was kind of quoted at the park saying Disney only cares about little girls, which is oversimplifying things.
It's not untrue, because Disney had daughters and did make that park for them. Bless him. But
they did actually have plans to do a sort of male counterpart to the Disney Princess franchise with kind of all the male heroes, and I think they only like released a few toys, but then they realized the numbers weren't selling, so now they focus on the MCU and Star Wars as that's the boy focused part of the marketing, which is a shame, because Prince Philip is actually one of my favorite Disney characters, and if you want me to get into Prince Philip from Sleeping Beauty. And
I can see that.
If you want me to get into a rant, you can just like happily mention the piece of steaming garbage that was the Maleficent movie.
Hey, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
The Maleficent movie.
It's proof of Angelina Jolie's talent as an actress, because she can take a steaming turd like that and make it work.
Didn't make the sequel work, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to be written on TV tropes, but this was before they started cleaning up how people spoke on there. But someone described the movie as, this is a bit mean, but like a fan fiction written by a grumpy teenage girl who can't understand why no one likes her.
That's all right.
That sounds about right.
I no lies detected. But I mean, Prince Philip is one of the more active Disney princesses.
Yeah,
I didn't like him as a kid, because I thought Maleficent Purple Dragon was the coolest shit out there. And he's the one that killed the purple dragon. And it was that one drop of blood in that movie was such a big deal at the time. That one when he stabs her in the heart and it's the one drop of blood freaked me out as a kid. But I've always been the one that backed the monsters, which is why I love movies like Shrek. I mean, I was older when Shrek came out, but I was actually sad that Maleficent died because it was cool and purple, and why can the dragon never be the hero?
I mean, I loved Maleficent as a character as well. Like when Kingdom Hearts sold me as soon as I saw that she was treated as the leader of the the villains.
But he is one of, not only is he one of the more dynamic in terms of, well, using the Disney version in terms of fighting the dragon, they also have that dance where they adapted Tchaikovsky. Adopted Tchaikovsky. There's all those American vowels coming into play. Tchaikovsky. But you know, the I know you, I walked with you once upon a dream. And I mean, Prince Philip, triple threat, Prince Charming. You know, he can sing, he can dance, he can kill dragons.
Which is kind of interesting because he's almost unrecognizable at the parks.
Yeah.
Like I found a reel on Instagram yesterday of just like, it's all the princes either like coming out or going back at the park. So it's like they're all in a line, which you rarely ever see. So I sent it to my boyfriend because I was like, oh, you rarely ever see this? And he's like, who's the one at the end? And I'm like, oh, it's Philip. Because they've changed the outfit so much.
He's got a very dated look it was trendy for the time.
Oh God, if you think the movie look is dated, I'm gonna send you the park look.
Yeah, because it is very Robin Hood-y, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the hat. Yeah. I do have a cosplay of it, but I've never found an excuse to wear it because it is kind of, well, it's not as fun as putting on a Power Ranger suit.
Please find an excuse.
I think it's kind of a cool outfit. The problem is people are going to think you're Robin Hood. Because if you wear the cap, well, I guess no, Robin Hood doesn't have the sleeves. But yeah, it is it's a snapshot in time of how the ideal look for men has evolved over the years.
Put the picture in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting to see how they've been depicted in different eras.
Well, it's a choice.
What, the hat's wrong.
The hat is very wrong.
The hat's wrong. Why
the whole outfit is wrong. It fits with what you see the kings wear, so like it's implied that this is him more dressing up, not running around in the forest.
Clearly implied.
Clearly implied, yeah. But
sorry.
The hat is wrong.
Yeah, the hat just makes me think of a pilgrim.
Well, it's a pilgrim hat. It's not I've had to make that hat because I made the Sir Graham from King's Quest hat for a cabaret number, and it's not round. It's just two pieces sewn together, open squish feather. And
the Peter Pan hat.
I mean, the guy they cast is surprisingly accurate. Like
they're very good at that.
The outfit is just all right.
I'm not sure why it's red and black compared to her pink. It, like you guys said, it's a choice.
But he is wearing pink. No, he's not. It's red.
Yeah, I thought it was pink as well.
It is pinkish.
It's pinkish.
Now, granted, I haven't seen this. I haven't seen this outfit in person. Obviously, the only prince I got to see was Flynn, which, I mean, let's talk about the contrast of someone like Philip compared to, in the 90s, we got, Himbo Eric.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that as well.
And lovable rogue Aladdin. And then we got Flynn, who just kind of straddles the line for me. But even before him, we had Naveen in The Princess and the Frog, who I cannot stand Naveen. And it comes back to the fact that I hate the player. And that was a big turnoff for me in Hamilton, even, where I'm like, stop trying to make me like the player character and the womanizer. I hate it. And I especially hated it in The Princess and the Frog, where I'm like, okay, we're starting the girls young now with this trend. Because I mean, as we all know, if 50 Shades of Grey, if Christian Grey didn't have money, it wouldn't be a romance, it would be an episode of CSI.
It is kind of, I mean, Princess
I'm adding that
and
to the quote list.
It's not mine. It's something I've seen online.
Princess and the Frog. Okay, let's face it. Princess and the Frog was a miss as a movie overall, and it's too bad.
Tiana is my least favorite of the princesses.
Well, the messaging in that movie is so beat you over the head. You know, it's
kind of it intersects with something that TV tropes calls a dead unicorn trope, which is a trope that's known for being, parodied and subverted and deconstructed when it was never really a thing in the first place. Like the black guy dying first in a horror movie, that never happened.
It feels like it was Disney's first attempt to self-critique the criticism they were getting from the outside, which is, so like now Tiana's working and she doesn't need a man. And in fact, the man is extremely lazy and sucks. And the only good thing he does is he gives her a title.
But you made the movie about the first Black Disney princess with a lazy womanizing prince. That's such a stereotype.
And they copped out as well by just they give him like light brown skin, green eyes, and kind of basically don't give him any defined race at all.
The name Naveen suggests he's Indian.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's interesting because, like, again, going back to that reel I sent my boyfriend, he's like, well, who's the second one? And I'm like, oh, it's Naveen. And he's like, well, Disney failed because he's way too light-skinned.
Well, an Indian prince would be quite light-skinned. Probably lighter skinned than him. But it just, that whole thing, I remember watching it going, okay, they're trying, but you don't start with the deconstruction, you start with inclusion. And they tried to do inclusion and deconstruction at the same time. And then the music wasn't very good. That was the biggest problem with The Princess and the Frog. Then I think they've learned to an extent since then, but I mean, I was also very surprised that Disney went angry black person with what's her name, Reva in Star Wars.
Yeah,
I mean, Reva. She was great. I thought she was great. But
but I'm pretty sure part of why the character was so hated was because people couldn't separate. There was a lot of racism involved in it, of course, but I think it was also people just hated the character and because she played it so well, but people hated the character and how angry and violent the character was, and so it projected onto the actress the same way we've seen with characters like Joffrey Baratheon and Draco Malfoy, where the actors got so much hate, they were like, yeah, no, I'm done acting for a while.
And I mean, this is a bit of a problem. Well, it's a lot more of a problem with stories featuring girls where they do treat their, because I mean, I think we can all agree that the building block, the basement, the foundation of female-driven stories is these fairy tales, notably the Disney approach.
Yeah.
And the virtues, the good qualities of the princesses are treated as innate, not earned. And I think that's why when you get something like Reva, who there's a character arc, she changes. She ultimately can't go through with, torturing children, for instance. We aren't as open to that, or a She-Hulk, or another story where the character does start off kind of disgusting. They either have to be a failure in everything, I love the femme fatale or Regina from Once Upon a Time, they never get their happy ending, or they have to be innately good from the beginning and can't change.
And that's kind of why Ariel gets so much shit as well, because even though she is presented as a fundamentally good person, she's also much more flawed. And so many bad faith takes like, oh, she challenged her father's wishes. Oh, she did this, she did that. It's like character arc.
Well, and what's interesting about Ariel and Belle is they're eccentric.
Exactly, yeah.
And there was that other thing of the princes in question there. I mean, the Beast does not like Belle at first.
He doesn't like anybody.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, their quirks make them, you know, it says something about Prince Eric or Beast that they're actually interested in a bookish girl, or, you know, a girl who wants adventure, a weird girl. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's said in, oh, sorry, Song.
I just want to say the eccentric girl, that trope eventually got watered down to become the quirky girl.
Yeah.
Which is so prevalent now, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Pretty much every Disney princess and main Disney female character since Tangled has been a quirky girl, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, so I feel like Frozen kind of did it well enough, because it's like Anna's that way because she's literally been cut off from the world, so she is a little mad, and she matures kind of throughout the course of that and the sequel. So,
well, Frozen is an interesting example because there's two of them. One of the few times we actually get two, so they're allowed to be distinct characters that are foils for each other. And I mean, there is no actual handsome prince in Frozen, or Prince Charming in Frozen. The prince is a dick. And I do think that when people go after Disney on false feminist pretenses, they are overlooking the fact that Disney really does, you know, not only encourage women to pursue their dreams. Don't worry, men will like you anyway. It's a little bit of a lie, but let's not destroy dreams too soon. But also, they signal to boys, look, you can be a nice guy. You don't have to be tough. You don't have to be a bully. Women will like you if you are kind and sympathetic and open. And that is such an important element of the Prince Charming character that I think we've lost. And it's led to, as Song said, characters that are actually walking red flag collections that we treat as, oh, look, he changed for her. No, that's called love bombing. When a guy who is a womanizer suddenly treats you like the greatest woman in the world, you haven't changed him. He's hit pause until he gets bored of you, and then he'll be back to his old ways.
And that's why I hate it. And it's very common in romance novels and romance stories where it's like, you know, the reformed player. Even Bridgerton has a quote that it's reformed rakes make the best husbands. No, they don't.
No,
they don't. Absolutely do not.
No.
And, you know, but that is a very common trope where it is, oh, you know, she's the one who can make him settle down and behave. For how long?
You can't.
It's not going to last.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And I don't know why we're pushing this. I mean, you see the evolution of James Gunn as a person from the first Guardians of the Galaxy to the last one, right? I do love that ultimately Star-Lord did not end up with Gamora, because he is still a man-child and didn't grow. He didn't deserve her, because I absolutely hated them being jammed together.
It never made sense, because here's the thing, and this is something Liana and I have talked about, but I don't remember if it was on Two Women Talking. But one of the songs in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and I attest that the songs are important because they played to his character. It's I'm Not in Love by 10cc, I believe it is. And great song. I love it. But it's all about, oh no, sorry. It's not fooled around and fell. No. Oh my God, I'm getting mixed up. It's not I'm Not in Love. It's Fooled Around and Fell in Love. I don't remember the artist.
Yeah.
Where if you listen to that song, which is the song you see him show Gamora on Nowhere, and then the scene where after he saves her by giving her the space mask and they're pulled aboard the Ravager ship and he's like, oh, something about you made me want to be a better person. And I'm like, this is that song.
Mm-hmm.
It's that song. It's all the 80s media he consumed. He's trying to live it out. And you see that even more profoundly in the second movie where he's like, this isn't Cheers. This is a show no one would watch because it's stupid. And he's trying to live these things out.
Yeah, and it's like the quote. Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, like the quote in Sleepless in Seattle. You don't want to be in love. You want to be in love in a movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I just want to say, because I still find this funny, when I went to Disneyland, I did the princess breakfast and there was no Tiana at the breakfast, which I was fine with because she's also my least favorite. But I have connections to someone who worked in the park who she told me later, you didn't have a Tiana because I had a Gamora over in, because she's one of the production shows. So the actress who, or the model, I'm not sure what they're
doing both.
Yeah.
The girl who is friends with Tiana, friends with Gamora. That's the code word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same.
So yeah, I was like, okay, that's cool. I didn't get to see Gamora either because I just did not care enough to go over to Marvel. But yeah, I still find it funny. Yeah, you didn't have a Tiana because I had a Gamora. So
yeah, I read a Reddit AMA from a girl who played Pocahontas, Mulan, and Silver Mist the Fairy, and she got approached by the same girl as her 3 different characters and being given a handmade card. And by the 3rd time she came up, she's like, hey, I know you. My friends told me you like making cards. And she says the girl's face just lit up like the 4th of July.
Aww. But I mean, the fact that the same woman is playing Mulan and Pocahontas.
Yeah, that's questionable.
Yeah, this was the date on
and
the
Silver
AMA
Mist.
said. Yeah, the date on the AMA said it was from 2014, so probably sometime in the 2000s before.
Well, yeah, that was a period of time where nobody but me went, why is Troy Baker voicing Pagan Min? It was Asians were that Schrodinger's minority.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Latinos, but it's getting slightly better. But yeah, it is funny that the minute something focuses on women, we stop looking at, well, we don't really talk very much about the signals media sends to men. And it is a bit of an issue where, let's face it, the qualities that most women who will treat a man well look for are the qualities society tacitly looks down on in men. I don't know, Bobby, would you agree with that statement? Would you amend that statement?
Yeah, just a thought I've had a lot over the last year is that I've noticed a lot of guys are kind of sort of like low-key looking for other guys that they can show that side of themselves around. Because this is going off into a bit of a tangent anyway, and I am going to be throwing someone I know under the bus slightly, but yeah, there was this barbershop I used to go to, and yeah, I assumed, because it's like a real kind of typical lads place where it's like there's even video games in the back for you when you're waiting, and I just assumed that the owner was like one of those typical guys as well, because I'd hear like snippets from his other conversations, and he would kind of talk about football, and sorry, that's soccer to the Americans listening. And so whenever I was seen by him, I would do the code switching as well. I was like, yeah, cars, football, hot girls, yeah. And then kind of as the more I was going there, and I kind of followed all of them on Instagram and kind of saw the different things they were posting about and kind of getting a sense of what they also liked, I was just like, oh yeah, like this guy, he's code switching to kind of match with the rest of his customers. And so like I kind of started being more me around him. And this is a very defining moment where this point he was used to me, and he wasn't working on me, someone else was, but he was getting ready to go, physically hand on the door. And as I got up from the chair because I was finished, I saw him just kind of like subtly shift himself into position because he knew I was going to hug him goodbye.
Aw, that's
like,
nice.
He's used to me by now. So, Song, if you don't know, I'm kind of infamous for I will hug someone hello, goodbye, and then just randomly a few times in between as well.
I approve.